Before I begin, I just wanted to quickly thank the organisers for making this conference possible and for allowing me to present a part of my dissertation project here today. In 1592, only 6 years after one of the most severe dearth periods of the 16th century, Thomas Nashe premieres his new drama, Summer's Last Will and Testament, for the Archbishop of Canterbury at his palace in Croydon. The play personifies the four seasons and casts summer as a dying monarch in search of an heir. Containing various elements from Elizabethan pageants and holiday entertainments, the plot of Summer's Last Will consists of a series of loosely connected episodes, and today I want to focus on one of these narrative strings that investigates how the changing climate during the Little Ice Age impacted early modern harvests. Between the beginning of the 14th century and the middle of the 1800s, the average temperatures across Europe were 1 to 2 degrees lower in comparison to both prior and subsequent periods. This difference might appear small at first glance, but it had devastating meteorological effects, causing cycles of drought and heavy rainfalls, as well as increasing the frequency of storms and crop-killing frosts. It also affected the seasons. Winters became longer and harsher, while springs were noticeably shorter and colder. In a fantastic essay published earlier this year, Laurie Johnson calls for more nuanced engagement with the Little Ice Age. He notes that, in contrast to the continent, the long winters only fully developed in England during the first decade of the 17th century. Moreover, 1592 proved to be a particularly warm year, so much so that during a drought spell, the Thames completely dried up for 3 days. While these points are well taken and enrich our understanding of the ecology between literature and the environment, Summer's Last Will forms somewhat of a counterpoint to the immediate meteorological realities of its performance context. For a series of 3 court trials in which Summer presides as judge, the play uses the literary affordances of personification to enable an imaginative project for its audience, the possibility of conceptualizing a form of environmental justice that can, at least cathartically, hold the climate responsible for the role it plays in harvest failure. Due to time constraints, I will mainly focus on the second and third trial today, but to give you some context, I will briefly summarize the first. During this scene, Harvest is called to answer the complaints that have been brought to Summer. He stands accused of the crime of engrossing, that is, of creating artificial scarcity by buying up large quantities of grain in order to create a local trade monopoly. Harvest, however, defends himself against these charges, insisting that he is already providing as much as he can. In his own words, quote, "They rake me and eat me to the very bones, till there be nothing left but gravel and stones." Consequently, the issue is not that Harvest is withholding resources to line his own pockets, but that there is simply not enough food to feed everyone. Convinced by Harvest's reply, Summer soon inquires about the reasons behind the shortage. As it turns out, the cold weather had a significant impact on this year's crop yield. As Harvest says himself, quote, "My barley, even as many another's, is crust-bitten as soon as ever he peeps out of the shell, so was it frostbitten in the blade." With this new evidence uncovered, the play's second trial focuses on winter's potential involvement in harvest failure. In addition to Summer, Autumn now fulfills the role of prosecutor and presents the audience with the list of winter's alleged crimes. These range from really minor wrongdoings, such as making paths slippery so that people fall, to a grand accusation of intentional environmental destruction. According to Autumn, Winter, quote, "cares not how he endamageth the earth, what poverty he makes it to endure." Winter denies these allegations, stating that, and I quote again, "I love good husbandry, but hate false covetous." He then speaks the following lines in his defense. Youth never aspires to virtue's perfect growth till his wild oats be sown, and so the earth, until his weeds be rotted with my frosts, is not for any seed or tillage fit. He must be purged that have surfeited. The fields have surfeited with summer's fruits. They must be purged, made poor, or pressed with snow, ere they can recover their decayed pride. The expression to sow one's wild oats was proverbial in early modern England and described a period of sexual promiscuity in the lives of young men. Winter's argument then is the following. Just how abstinence is necessary for purging vices and becoming virtuous, so too is winter a necessary part of the agricultural cycle. The colder months of the year kill the weeds and provide the fields with the necessary time to recover from the previous year's harvest. Although autumn concedes that winter has a point, the evidence, the frostbitten barley, cannot be dismissed entirely. Accordingly, in the play's final trial, Bagwinter, one of Winter's two sons, is asked to take the stand and answer the charges brought against him. As Todd points out in his anthology, the word Bagwinter is an original coinage by Nashe and describes, quote, a belated outbreak of wintry weather in springtime. True to his name then, Bagwinter, the character, shows no concerns for the seasonal cycle or its importance for agriculture. Rather than defending himself, once he takes a stand, he voices an apocalyptic vision of climate tyranny. And here are two telling passages from his speech. Bagwinter, would that I could bark the sun out of the sky, turn moon and stars to frozen meteors, and make the ocean a dry land of ice. I hate the air, the fire, the spring, the year, and whatsoever brings mankind any good. Oh, that my looks were lightnings to blast fruits. These lines condemn Bagwinter, and Summer swiftly sentences him to be imprisoned in the palace dungeons. Throughout these three trials, Nashe's play draws on the early modern legal imaginary, both by employing the familiar setting of the courtroom and through its legal vernacular. Moreover, it is through the use of personification that Summer's last will makes it possible to extend notions of justice to the incorporeal culprits behind harvest failure. Perhaps I'm pointing out the obvious here, but in order for a punishment like imprisonment to be conceivable, whoever is convicted must possess a physical body that can be locked away. But it is also in this moment of justice that the play encounters a problem. As Bagwinter is being carried to his cell, he directs the following promise at Summer. I will peep forth, thy kingdom to supplant. My father I will quickly freeze to death, and then sole monarch will I sit and think how I may banish thee as thou dost me. Here, the difference between Bagwinter, the character, and Bagwinter, the mythological phenomenon, is suddenly brought to the fore. While the former can be theatrically brought to justice, doing so does nothing about the latter. What can be done then about the changing climate? Summer's last will turns to this question shortly before the play closes and offers one possible answer. After Summer's death, his body is carried off stage by a singing train of satyrs and wood nymphs. Their song consists of two stanzas, each of which ends with the same line, quote, from winter, plague, and pestilence, good Lord, deliver us. This emphasis on religious devotion as a potential solution to the climate crisis is at least partially inflected by the play's audience, seeing how it was written to be performed before the Archbishop of Canterbury. Still, there were few alternative models at the time that could account for the cooling climate. According to Christian belief, the weather, much like everything else, was part of God's domain. As the preacher William Barlow proclaims during a sermon in 1596, God is, quote, the Lord of nature, who ruleth as himself pleaseth. For Barlow, plentiful harvests were not the result of humanity's hard work, but simply an expression of God's blessings. Conversely, he argued that if England suffered through a period of dearth, it was because God was displeased with the immoral behavior of his subjects. Therefore, because the seasons cannot be dragged into the courtroom physically, the only alternative to attain justice, it seems, is to petition God through prayer.